Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
This week on episode 4 of Split Decision, we'll be recapping UFC 290, giving you a preview for UFC Vegas 77. We'll explain our top 5 retired fighters, and then we'll finish up the episode with a few who would wins.
All right, so UFC 290 from this past weekend may have been the best card of all time. This thing, top to bottom, was exciting. Top to bottom, there were upsets, crazy finishes, dominant performances. I really think this card probably had everything you could want in a fight card. What do you think? Especially for International Fight Week.
It was very exciting. I think you're right when you say top to bottom. It was amazing. We had 4 sub 1 minute knockouts on the entire card, which is insane. I had a lot of fun with this card. I did pretty well in my picks. I was happy the whole time watching it. I was excited.
Even the picks I got wrong, they were such good fights and good performances. Like, I didn't even care.
Yeah. This was a special card. UFC did great with International Fight Week, presenting a bunch of different countries. Title exchange. We had an and still. Bunch of highlights to take a look at.
And speaking of that and still, the main event, Alexander Volkanovski, Yair Rodriguez. Alexander the Great Volkanovski may have solidified himself as the 145 UFC GOAT after this performance. And he enters the conversation for greatest of all time, regardless of weight class. He absolutely dominated Yair. He did whatever he wanted. It looked like, honestly, that after his last fight against Islam, even though he lost, because he competed so well and wrestled so well, he knew coming into this fight, Yair could not fuck with him. He was throwing him all over the place. And even by the end, when he finished him, it was almost like he got hit one time and then said, all right, that's enough, and just went and finished him whenever he wanted to. It's like he could have done it the whole time.
Yeah. That's actually what I'd like to piggyback off of. In the third round, that was probably Yair's best round. Not to say that he was, dominant by any standpoint, but as soon as Yair started to kind of tilt the round in his favor,
Volk said, fuck this.
Volk did a double leg, took him down, and then just ground and pound. We had a great, and still.
Well, he knocked him down first.
Yeah.
Knocked him down with his fist.
Knocked him down and a double leg in the same round. Just completely flipped it on him.
But yeah, with this performance, Volk, I think I have him as my pound-for-pound #1 fighter. I think he's the best fighter in the UFC. He's so well-rounded. He always has such good game planning going in. He's smart. Honestly, there's nothing in the octagon the guy can't do.
He learned so much from Islam. Or not from Islam, from the Islam fight.
From the fight. I agree.
Man, not like he wasn't good at wrestling, but Ortega almost made him tap. Admittedly, the previous fight.
Yeah, but jiu-jitsu and wrestling are totally different.
Right. but his grappling defense, his wrestling, I think the last two fights he had before Yair just opened his eyes to what he can increase his
Well,
scope
he knows
on.
if you wrestle with Islam that well, and then you go back down to 145, I mean, he knows he can just throw these dudes around.
And he did.
And he did. He literally threw Yair around.
Very good fight. And for our co-main event, we had another title fight. We had Brandon Moreno, the assassin baby, versus Alexandre Pantoja. What is his name? The Cannibal?
The Cannibal.
All right. So, a little bit of backstory for this. Unofficially, officially, this is their third encounter. Pantoja beat Moreno twice before. Once, was it in the Contender Series?
Ultimate Fighter. He choked him out.
He choked him out.
And then in
lost to decision. Moreno lost to decision.
In the
first official bout
in the UFC, and it actually caused Moreno to get cut from the UFC at the time. I think it was 2018.
Right. So a little difference of career leading up. Brandon got cut, then he came back, and then pretty much just fought Davis Figueiredo for the past 5 years, which is fine.
Four out of his last 5 fights.
It was a pretty, fantastic exchange between the two of them over the time. But then Pantoja was silently just working his way, up the rankings this whole time, biding his time, waiting for a chance to take the belt.
Well, you got to feel good if you're Pantoja coming into the fight and you knew that you had beaten Brandon Moreno twice, the champ. That's got to give you a little extra confidence. And he came out. I mean, this was probably, I think it won fight of the night. I think this all around was the best fight of the entire night.
It was very good. Pantoja showed where he kind of had Moreno's card in the first 2 exchanges, but he also showed where he grew throughout his career at the same time, because I'll admit I was wrong with my pick. I thought Moreno was going to retain the belt. I thought not that nothing crazy was going to happen, but I thought everything was just kind of going to stay the same. What we got was Pantoja, in my opinion, split decision was kind of wrong. I thought Pantoja should have won by unanimous decision.
Well, I mean, I could see how I had it 4 rounds to 1 Pantoja, but there were a lot of close rounds. Some people had it 3-2 Moreno. I saw that.
I had Moreno winning the second and third round.
I think the most common score was 3-2 Pantoja all around, which was was fair. I mean, Pantoja, he was great on the ground. Moreno was great on the feet. They both pieced each other up. Brandon Moreno was looking rough at the end of this fight.
He was.
But Pantoja, man, this dude's he's a killer. I don't know if a lot of people, even though this was a title shot, I don't think a lot of people realized this dude is a very good fighter. He's very well-rounded, and he's a good and exciting champ for the 125 division.
Right, and as Vin Diesel would probably agree, when you're fighting for family, you have the edge.
Yeah, that was an emotional call-out. Some people are saying it's one of the best post-fight speeches. When he said his dad who abandoned him, he just asked if his dad was proud of him now.
Right. Yeah, that's tough.
A tearjerker. All right, moving on to the next fight of the night. This may have been the best individual performance of the night. Dracus du Plessis against Robert Whittaker. And Dracus, he proved everybody except for Alex, apparently, wrong.
Alex and Bucky.
He kind of outschooled and dominated Robert Whittaker, which was a surprise to everybody. Robert Whittaker had coming in, I think he was 13-2 as a middleweight in the UFC, and the only 2 losses were to Izzy. He pretty much dominates everybody else.
Right, and so I'm not trying to be boastful or anything. I want to talk about this in a real setting. Obviously, Bucky's bullshit picks were 50-50 on every one. He went 2-3 for the whole week, so fuck him. But the thing I really think everybody overlooked with Dracus was that he's not a slouch in his own right. And
yeah, but he has never looked close to this good before.
No, I guess the deviated septum really cleared things up. But
I think it did.
Outside of that, obviously Bobby Knuckles is going to be back.
I don't know. Where does he go from here after getting dominated like that?
It's not the end. Listen,
It's not the end, but it might be the end as a serious title contender.
It could. I mean, you got to put him on the monitor, right? But everybody just simply counted Dreykus out. They just because Whitaker's only losses were to Izzy.
Well, no, it's because of how good Whitaker is, not just because
He is. No, but not you. But the masses, casual fans, are weighing that heavily when they're like, oh, well, he's top tier, which he is. He's up there, only losing to people like Israel Adesanya, which he did. But when you have an up-and-comer, somebody on the rise like Dreykus, they have the hype, not as much hype, right? They don't get the benefit of the doubt, but anybody can win any given week. If Whitaker, he said today, I believe, he wasn't there to fight. Obviously he didn't feel like that coming in, but you can tell with the outcome.
I mean, you're making good points, but even Dreykus said Whitaker, even after the fight, he said this should have been the favorite. So I don't think anybody was overlooking him. He has just never performed anywhere close to this good, and I think he won a lot of fans because of this. Like, it was an impressive win, and then the post-fight face-off with Izzy was very, very cringe, but it kind of sets up Dreykus to go fight Izzy for the title.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Even though I picked Dreykus to beat Whitaker, I'm gonna have to do some serious soul searching before I can lock Dreykus to beat Izzy.
Before this fight, if you would have said they were fighting, I would have said Israel dominates. After this fight, I don't know. I'm probably still leaning Izzy, but it's definitely going to be a fight.
Another amazing fight. Dan the Hangman Hooker versus Jalen the Tarantula Turner. The Hooker won.
The Hangman's back.
Yeah.
2 straight wins after a tough little stretch. He's back.
But listen, I'm not saying I'm the all-knowing, right? Because obviously I still got some wrong. I picked 2 good underdogs here that did win, but I didn't see anything and nobody else did. The cards were just kind of in my favor here. With Hooker, he had a bunch of tough opponents, with his losses. He wasn't fighting nobodies.
Agreed. I think I was looking at it today. His last losses were like Arnold Allen, who's a serious contender at 145, Islam, Dustin Poirier. It's like, okay, I mean.
Yeah. So for a Hooker to be able to bounce back from those kind of losses. Michael Chandler. And for him to be able to bounce back from those kind of losses, it just goes to show that your discipline,
He's a dog.
Yeah.
He's been in the UFC since, I looked it up today, 2014. Like, he's been in.
Wow.
He's been in here.
Turner, on the other hand, he didn't come out well prepared.
I think he came out well prepared. What I think, he was winning the first round and a half of this fight, and I think
the knockdown.
No, I think the thing that changed it was when we kicked Dan Hooker in the head. It was a clean shot.
Oh, and
Hooker wobbled, but he didn't go down, and
yeah,
I think that took it out of Jalen Turner. It was like he was discouraged after that, and then after that, Dan Hooker just...
When Hooker saw his own blood, he turned it on.
Yeah, it was like Hooker needed to get rocked a little to turn it on all the way, and he dominated the last round and a half. I think every scorecard had it 2-1 Hooker. Hooker winning the second and the third. It was a split decision. I think one of the judges was actually the only person that didn't have it. He gave the third round to Jalen Turner somehow.
Yeah. And with Turner missing weight by over, 158 he came in?
Yeah, so missed it by 2 pounds.
Maybe he needs to look at moving up in weight class. He'll be able to stay a little stronger.
I think it was one fight. He probably just made a mistake. I wouldn't say he needs to move up quite yet. If he struggles with it again, definitely.
Yeah, let's keep him on the lookout as well.
All right, so the next fight we're going to talk about, it was the main card opener. Bo Nickel versus Val Woodburn. Val Woodburn was a last-minute replacement for Tresean Gore. This fight lasted 38 seconds.
Can I give you a stat about that real quick? So 38 seconds is tied for the 4th fastest fight of the night.
That's insane.
I don't even know what to say from that. 4th fastest. So we had a 38-second fight here.
But hold on, let's talk about this fight, though.
That's what I'm saying.
38-second knockout from the wrestler.
Yes, Bo Nickel knocked out Val Woodburn.
He faked, or kind of went feinted the takedown a couple times, and then just unloaded. He threw like 5 shots, and he landed, I think, 4 of them clean, and Val was out.
Yeah, there wasn't much needed after that. It was just electric. It was funny, and
So Bo Nichols now 5-0 as an MMA fighter, 2-0 in the UFC. All of his fights are first-round finishes. He needs to step up his competition next. I know it's not all on him, but I think he's proven he's too good for these like young prospects. Like he needs to fight a serious guy next. I think like a top 20, top 15 guy.
right.
Just so we know how good he is. Because right now he looks like Superman.
What I think you're asking is for the UFC to test him.
Yeah, because I mean, this is his second fight, and both of them have been on pay-per-views, main cards. Like, he has the hype already. He has the popularity. I think a lot of people know who he is. I think it's time to test him and see how big of a star he could be. Because this was, I know it was against a last-minute replacement who it was his first fight in the UFC, but this was impressive. It just looked impressive.
The now retired ruthless Robbie Lawler was set to fight Nico Price, and man, did he set the world on fire again. When I said last fight that it was a tie for the 4th shortest fight of the night, this is the fight it tied for. Also 38 seconds.
2 straight 38-second fights. That was crazy.
Robbie Lawler knocked out Nico Price in the clinch with a bunch of just very clean shots.
Like
an uppercut,
4 or
I think, is
5
what finished it.
It was like 4 or 5 quick, clean shots, and Nico went out. He folded like a lawn chair. I don't think I've ever seen somebody retire in a more perfect way than this. Maybe Khabib, the way he did it, but this was just so impressive. And what a way to go out. I hope he actually is retired and he doesn't come back, because you're never going to get a better way to go out than this.
You're absolutely right. I mean, this fight here spawned this week's top 5 discussion. So that alone, you know, it's just cool that as you're going out, they're not setting you up to do that, and you still were able to just do that. Is crazy.
Nico Price, you know,
I had him to win. I lost a pick here.
Yeah, I actually got that one right, but I mean, that was a pretty fair fight. So it wasn't, they didn't just give him a sacrificial lamb or anything. It was an impressive win, Robbie Lawler. They even showed after the fight, they had a little video montage, made him tear up in the ring. It was just the perfect way to end a legendary career.
I didn't get a lot of picks wrong, but boy, did I get this one wrong.
I think we both got this one wrong, and Vegas got this one wrong too.
I picked Yasmin, excuse me if I get this wrong, Jauregui, sorry, over Denise Gomez.
So it's actually Gomes. That's another thing I found out.
Oh, it's Gomes.
It's Gomes.
My apologies again. So, Denise Gomes, first thing I noticed when doing my research here, she has a neck tattoo that says Overcome. I thought that was just whatever, just shitty tattoo.
It turned me off of her when I first saw it, but after the way she fought, I kind of like it now.
Okay, so listen. Denise Gomes knocked Yasmin out in 20 seconds.
It was so quick. It was unexpected. You just don't expect that in people that size. Like, that's better than the men that size.
Dominic Cruz would, when watching this fight, I'm sure would just be flipping out right now that it didn't take just a simple neck crank to end this fight. It blows my mind that this was a 20-second knockout, but this was a pretty heavy underdog. I think she was plus 290.
Yeah, she was one of the bigger underdogs.
So, props to her. Denise Gomes.
Impressive win.
On the radar now. I'm not going to be looking at your tattoos with any foolishness anymore. I know you're the real deal.
No,
my apologies.
I understand the neck tattoo now after watching that.
Yeah, that's a killer move.
All right, so the last fight we're going to cover from UFC 290 was Menifield Crute, the rematch after they drew in, I think, February or March of earlier this year. And Menifield came out, and he showed that he had improved, and he learned from the first match.
Yeah, it seems like he came out more prepared, more willing to take do whatever it took to win the fight. It shows that Crute kind of just went out there with the same technique as the first fight.
Yeah, he had the same game plan, and it was obvious that Minifield
Saw it. He was like, "Oh, you're still trying to wrestle."
Yeah, he
well,
evolved.
let's do that then.
Yeah, he evolved and Crute didn't. And it was a nice win from Minifield. It looked like that Crute was retiring. He took his gloves off and placed them in the middle, but then I think he came out today and said he's not retiring but taking some time off.
He's like, "Oi, that was a brash decision."
Yeah, he's taking kind of a downturn in his career. I think it's smart to take a little time off, get your head straight, come back.
Yeah, that it's funny. A second round finish in what I'll call one of the most normal fights of the evening.
Yeah, nothing crazy happened in this fight, but
it was still a
good
finish.
Yeah, it was a good fight from Minifield. All right, so now let's recap our bets and picks from 290, update the leaderboard, and then we'll introduce a new opponent that we'll be keeping track of.
Right. So, Christian, first thing I want to say is congratulations. Second week in a row, you went 3-0 in bets.
Thank you.
I, on the other hand, still had a good week, 67%, 2-1. I think anything over 50 is good. It means you're winning more than you're losing. So, cool there. Christian, that brings you to 7-2 on the season so far. That brings me to 5-3-1. I'm happy.
Yeah, I'm very happy with the start of the season.
Yeah. So for picks this past week, Christian, you went 4-4. I think we know the Duplessis Hooker wins really screwed over a lot of people's picks just in general. Two big underdogs in a row won there. I took a win here. I went 5-3, where I lost a couple favorites early on. I was able to get my redemption with Duplessis and Hooker. That moved Christian to a solid 14-8 on the season, and that moves me to 15-7 on the season, which I'm pretty excited about. It kind of proves that with a little bit of research, if you pay attention to certain things, you can win with picks. Not like we're winning anything, but we can just have some fun winning picks.
I would say no. I think they need to listen to us and get picks from us.
Fair enough. Yeah, don't do your research. Listen to me. And lastly, for the picks, since Bucky is not of legal gambling age, he's a dog. We've let Bucky do picks. He's picking toys out of his little toy buckets. He went 2-3 this past week. He unfortunately picked Gore, and we didn't refilm anything because sometimes he's an asshole. But he also picked Turner, so he lost those two. He did pick Duplessis, so props to him. And then a Moreno and Volk. So Bucky will be in all the picks. He'll be picking all the main cards, maybe more. We'll see how it goes. But keep tabs on that. That's all going to be on social media, so it'll be fun.
All right, so let's move on to the card this weekend, UFC Vegas 77 at the Apex. The first fight we're going to look at is Jack Della Maddalena versus a new replacement, Basil Hafez. Is that how you say his last name?
I think so, actually.
Hafez,
something like that. Listen, we're from South Louisiana, so we kind of get the pass on saying names incorrectly, while we also apologize. Education's not our forte.
JDM, he actually had a fight scheduled last week, got canceled. Had a replacement last week, that also got canceled. So they found him another late replacement for this weekend. He comes in 14-2 with 14 straight wins. He's only had one fight go to the scorecard, so he's a dude that finishes. And he's 4-0 in the UFC, all first-round finishes. So against a late replacement, newcomer to the UFC, I think he's going to come out. I think he's going to win with a first-round Probably a knockout.
Right. I couldn't imagine how frustrating that's got to be for Madalena. To honestly, he just wants to fight before he leaves Vegas.
Well, I mean, he came here from Australia. I would too. Like,
Yeah, like and you also don't want to waste all the money on the camps and everything like that. The
literally
coaches.
halfway around the world.
Yeah. So props that they were able to find him a fight this short notice. I mean, I guess third opponent on this short notice. So props to them for that. I do think he's going to be winning this fight. He's going to be a pretty big favorite. Basil Hafez, though, he's 8-3. He's won 3 decisions, but he's also lost 3 decisions. So this is going to be a step up in competition. We'll see how it goes. So I think we pretty much established, in order to be at 155 pounds, lightweight, you have to be a killer. Terrence McKinney versus Nazim Sadikov this weekend is going to show everybody that that's true.
Yeah, so these two guys, McKinney's 13-5, Sadikov is 8-1. Between the two guys total, only one fight has gone to the scorecards. So these guys, they finish guys, and then on the occasion they get finished.
Right. So McKinney's also only been into the third round once, and that was like a minute in. So that kind of leads me to believe that the fight's not going to go the distance. It's going to be finished some way or the other. So it's very interesting. I'd bet here, if I was a betting man, which I am, I'm just not betting on this fight, I would go with something along the lines of either a second round finish, or second or first round finish, or like the under on the total rounds.
I actually am betting on this fight.
Oh, cool.
I have Terrence McKinney winning money line, so I have him at plus 130. He lost his last fight by a vicious knee, flying knee.
Shout out Ishmael Bonfim, who we just saw fight a couple weeks ago.
Shout out Bonfim. But he hasn't lost 2 in a row in his career, so I think he's going to come out. He's fighting a killer. Like I said, both these guys finish each other, or finish other guys.
Whoa.
Whoa. Pause. But I think Terrence McKinney, T-Rex, finishes Sadikov. I'm going to say second round, probably KO, but I got McKinney.
Okay, cool. My pick actually here is Sadikov. So it'll be interesting to see who, as you put it, who's finishing who. Next we have Otman the Bulldozer Azator, another lightweight fight, versus Francisco Prado. This one you have an Argentinian versus Azator, who's German. Azator's 13-1. He's got 10 KOs, 2 submissions, 1 decision. He's only lost by KO. Christian, I think you were mentioning to me before.
Both guys are coming off their first loss.
First loss. One thing that kind of helped me determine who I was going to pick for this fight is the fact that Francisco Prado, his first fight in the UFC was a loss, where he had 11 straight wins in his regional circuit. It's not necessarily just kind of pointing out the gloom for doom, but for me, when Azator's already been in the UFC, he's won a couple in the UFC. He's acclimated to the competition, but to me, Prado could just be facing that difference in level.
I don't know, though, because you got to think how Azator's going to respond. He had his first loss, and he got KO'd in the first round by Matt Frivola. So
that's true.
How are you going to respond from that? So it is kind of both guys facing something totally different.
Prado is more well-rounded. He has 5 KOs with six submissions, where Azator has he has 10 KOs and only 2 submissions.
There's an 11-year age gap between these two guys, too.
Right.
Azator 32, Prado 21. I think I also have Azator, but this was one of the hardest fights for me to pick on this card. I could have gone either way, but I think I'm going to go with Otman.
I agree. Otman is my pick here. Even with the odds that Vegas thinks, there's both minus odds. Minus 102 is what I have, and minus 125. So, it's really a toss-up.
All right, so the next fight we're going to move to is the first women's fight of the night. It's Norma Dumont, the Immortal, versus Chelsea Chandler.
I'm actually excited for this fight. With Norma at 9-2 and Chelsea at 5-1, honestly, this fight, I think this is going to be a clash of style. Specifically, a clash of style.
Norma looks like she goes for decision wins. Out of her 9 wins, 7 of them gone to the scorecards. Chelsea Chandler's 5-1, like you said. She lost her first fight, and she's won 5 in a row, including her last one was her UFC debut with a first-round TKO.
And to point out, Norma's only lost twice. Once by decision, once by KO. So she's already kind of proved to herself that she's, she can be beaten kind of either way, right?
Yeah, I think this is a very close fight. Vegas has it -145 to Dumont, +125 for Chandler. I actually have Chelsea Chandler winning this fight. I think she comes in. She probably gets a decision win, but I have Chandler winning.
I have the same. I think Chandler's going to win. I think with Norma so far, kind of relying on the wrestling. While she also, I looked at her striking. She strikes, but she strikes to get the takedown. And I think with somebody like Chandler, who can also submit you and has great takedown defense.
From Stockton, California. So
right. It's going to pose a problem for Dumont. I think we see a Chandler win here as well.
I actually think it's going to be my second bet of the night. I have Chelsea Chandler money line at +125.
All right, moving on to Walt the Big Ticket Harris versus Josh Parisian, or Parisian. Not sure how he says it. Listen, this is a heavyweight fight. Walt's 13-10. He's got 13 KOs.
Only wins by KOs.
So, I think it's safe to say that if he doesn't knock Josh out, he's going to lose at this point. He's also
agree.
40 years old. So what kind of level does that play into a heavyweight contest?
Well, I'm pretty sure he's planning on at most a 1-round fight, good or bad.
I have a weird stat. So I know you have a weird stat too. What about Walt Harris's wins? What'd you say?
So he has lost 3 in a row, but before that he won 2 in a row. His last win was in 12 seconds. And his other win, so his second to last win, was in 50 seconds. So 2 under a minute. So that's pretty impressive.
Okay.
Like you said, 13 knockouts too.
So I'll say both of those were in 2019. Moving on to 2020, he had a loss in the second round, 3 minutes. Moving on a little bit later in 2020, he had a loss again, second round, but shorter time. And then the most recent loss he had was in the first round. One of the things that made me pick Parisian for this fight was because Walt Harris lost each of his last fights quicker and quicker. So I think Josh is able to beat the fading Harris here to the point where I believe this is my second bet.
I also have a Parisian, but I don't. He's not guaranteed. I don't trust him enough to put money on it. He's lost his last fight. He's been alternating wins and losses for the past 5 fights. He is due for a win if he continues that pattern.
Right. If you can include his Contender Series win, he's 3-3 in the UFC.
Contender Series isn't UFC. He's 2-3 in the UFC.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying if you include that as his UFC career.
But regardless, even including that, it's still alternating wins and losses.
Right.
I think he's going to win. I don't trust him enough to win that I would put money on it.
Right. This is my second bet, +144. Money line, Josh Parisian.
Next fight of the night, Albert Durarev, the Machete. Jung Young Park, the Iron Turtle. Jung Young comes in 3 straight wins. His last 2 wins by rear naked choke. He's 6-2 in the UFC, 16-5 overall. Duraev, the Machete, 16-4 overall. He's 2-1 in the UFC. He's not been able to get a finish in the UFC yet, though.
Listen, one day I might learn to stop picking people over Russian wrestlers, but not today. Today, I'm still going to go against the grain and pick Jung Young Park as my third bet. Money line, He's a slight favorite. I just think he's going to do what it takes to finish here because Duraev hasn't been able to finish anybody in the UFC.
Brother, I'm on the same page as you. I also have Park as my pick, and I also have Jung Young Park moneyline as my final bet of the night.
And now for the main event for UFC Vegas 77, we have Holly, the Preacher's Daughter Holm, versus Myra Shitara Bueno Silva. Holly Holm comes in at 15-6, 8 KOs, 7 decisions, losing only once by KO, once by submission, and then 4 times by decision. Myra, 10-2, 1 KO win, 7 submissions, 2 decisions, and only losing twice by decision. One thing for me with Holm, even though she's the favorite here, at 41, that really shouldn't surprise anybody.
No, she's not slowing down at all. She's won 3 out of her last 4 fights. Her only loss in that is a split decision, which could have gone either way.
Yeah, I think Buena Silva is going to try to submit her here. Seeing as like Holly never really goes for a submission, and she's also been beaten by submission once, I think that's probably the reason this matchup was made. What do you think?
I honestly think Holly Holm's going to come in here, and I think this is just a different level for Bueno Silva. Holly Holm's consistent. She's consistently been in the top 5. I think Holly Holm comes in and gets the decision win.
Oh, I actually have Bueno Silva winning, so that'll be, a main event to look out for.
Okay, so let's move on to the top 5 of this week. In honor of Robbie Lawler, we're going to do top 5 favorite retired UFC fighters.
I like that.
So my number 5, I'll go ahead and start it off. My number 5, top retired UFC fighter, Michael Bisping.
I like Michael Bisping.
He's a funny guy. He has a great story where he was a journeyman UFC guy and late in his career.
He's got one eye.
He won the title. He has one eye that he lost in fighting. He's a funny announcer. He's a good podcaster. He talks some good shit. Michael Bisping.
I like that. My number 5 is Daniel DC Cormier.
Ooh, I like that one.
He's from our area, right around Lafayette, Louisiana. He hadn't had, but 3 losses his whole career. He was always kind of the people's champ too. He was a lovable guy. That's why he does commentary still. He's such a lovable guy. Everybody likes him.
He was the rare great fighter that was also like fat and he wasn't like in crazy shape, so he was way more relatable.
Yeah, he's like 5'7". It's nuts.
All right, so moving on, my number 4, Quentin Rampage Jackson. This dude, he was an exciting fighter. He maybe is one of the most intimidating fighters of all time. There's that famous clip of him on The Ultimate Fighter where he tears that door. There's just an open door and he just like tears it into pieces. I've never seen anything like it.
I believe he punched a hole in it and then just ripped it right off the door frame. Yeah, it was nuts. I remember that.
He always has the craziest interviews. Him messing with Ariel Helwani all the time is some of the funniest stuff. So yeah, Quentin Rampage Jackson is my number 4.
I like that. My number 4 is Jorge Gamebred Masvidal. But at this point, since he's retired especially, I'm going to change his nickname to Jorge Street Jesus Masvidal. Because that's really where I'm most of a fan from him is all of his, unsanctioned fights. While he was awesome in the UFC, I have, a 25-year library worth of fights I can watch of his. And just crazy, whether it's bare-knuckle brawls or in a cage, it's all highlights for him. He's just a great fighter.
I love that pick, and I love it so much. I actually have Jorge Gamebred Masvidal as my number 3 in my top 5 retired fighters. His knockout of Ben Askren The 6-second knockout. I mean, that is one of the most famous knockouts of all time. The flying knee. He also had a great knockout. Darren Till knocked him out in England in front of his home crowd. Uh, I mean, Jorge Masvidal, one of the more entertaining guys in the cage and out of the cage. Yeah, he's my number 3.
My number 3, which I don't. It's hard because I hate him, but I love him. He beat some of my favorite fighters, but he's also retired, so he's in this category kind of almost just for that reason. That's going to be Khabib, the Eagle, Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov. And every single time I struggle with that. Nurmagomedov. See, that's better. I like him. 29 wins, no losses. Man, I don't think he was ever dropped. I don't think he was ever taken down. I mean, if so, it was very few. He lost very few rounds in his whole career. Just a dominant performance. Retired in his prime just because he could. Khabib.
Yeah, arguably one of the GOATs. And I have one of the other GOATs as my number 2. I have Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson as my number 2. One of the best UFC fighters of all time. I think he has the most title defenses right now at 10 in the flyweight division. He was so good for so long. He's had a second career in ONE FC where he's won a couple belts. In his last fight, he did say he hinted at retirement. So it looks like he is retired. Demetrius Johnson. He's one of the most skilled fighters of all time. He has a famous flying armbar. One of his most famous submissions of all time. It's just a thing of beauty. He's good on the feet. He's elite on the ground. Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson.
I like that. My number 2 is somebody I was able to really get into the UFC in the height of his career. That's going to be Donald Cowboy Cerrone. One of the reasons I really liked him, which I just said, is because he was kind of in his height right when I got into watching. He fought guys, like Mike Perry. He fought Leon Edwards. He fought Darren Till, Robbie Lawler,
Conor McGregor,
Jorge Masvidal. He's fought everybody. He had, 48 career fights before he retired. Just a stud of a guy. Now he's an actor, so I got to start watching his movies.
The ultimate journeyman.
Just a stellar guy. He's willing to help people. He's just overall great person, great guy, great fighter. All respect to him.
All right, so my number 1 retired favorite UFC fighter of all time is going to be George GSP St. Pierre. Not only is he one of the GOATs, one of the best fighters of all time, he's one of the most likable guys of all time. He's a guy, he honestly could have been fighting longer, and he stopped kind of in his prime, which you got to respect, just like Khabib. He's an older guy now. I think he's in his 40s or 50s. He's still in good shape. He's still a great guy. He's been on Rogan a couple times. He's great. George St. Pierre.
The only reason that pick aggravates me is because I didn't get to say it first. My number 1 favorite retired fighter is George St. Pierre. Not only is he just a world-class athlete, he's a world-class guy. I think that goes a lot. He can be a role model to kids, fitness. He speaks out about that, talks about how important it is, especially since retirement. But, in the UFC, he lost only twice. I think he was 26-2. You said he was a little bit older. He's actually coming out of retirement for a grappling match pretty soon at 42. But he's not fighting, in the UFC anymore, so I think he's still valid for these picks. GSP just being a world-class guy, that makes him number 1 for me.
All right, so that wraps up the top 5 this week. Top 5 favorite retired UFC fighters in honor of the great ruthless Robbie Lawler.
All right. And now to give you all a little bit of news. So this past weekend, John Jones was hanging out in Las Vegas, which I'm sure could have spelled a lot of trouble for him in past years.
Made a lot of people nervous this weekend.
Yeah. Dana White felt he was there for a little bit too long. But at the end of the day, he said he can do what he wants. He's done well for himself. But props to John Jones. He also was recently awarded, or I guess he'll be awarded this week officially, the Fighter of the Year ESPY Award. So as long as that doesn't get trumped by any, arrests or anything.
Dana White's also famous for saying John Jones should not be in Las Vegas for more than 12 hours.
Well,
This was after his last arrest.
do you not agree?
No, I see where he's coming from.
Right. It's not wild news. It's just to say that John Jones has officially made it through a Vegas encounter.
Moving on to a former UFC fighter, today Francis Ngannou announced jointly with Tyson Fury that they would be participating in a boxing match in Saudi Arabia, a full boxing fight, knockouts included. It's unclear whether the belts will be on the line, but this is a big win for Francis Ngannou. He's sure to get paid a lot of money. It's in Saudi Arabia. So he gambled on himself, and it looks like, regardless if he wins or loses, it looks like it's going to pay off, at least money-wise.
I don't think we have to worry about a win or loss here. I think Tyson Fury is just going to manhandle Ngannou.
Well, yeah, I mean, if it would be vice versa if they did MMA, Ngannou would manhandle him, but because they're doing Fury sport and he's the best now.
But also props to him. Like, I don't want to take anything away from Ngannou. He's willing to go out there, show his stuff. I mean, McGregor did this versus Mayweather.
Exactly.
It's the same thing, just at heavyweight.
It's like I know you're better at boxing than me, but he feels like one punch he can get him.
I like the fight. I mean, could you imagine? We've seen Ngannou knock out Overeem one punch. We've seen him knock out Stipe one punch. Could you imagine one solid, clean, flush blow landing on Tyson Fury? What that'll do to him?
I've seen Tyson Fury take a clean flush blow from Deontay Wilder, who is a harder puncher, and he's been able to withstand it. So
it'll still be an interesting fight.
It'll be an interesting fight. I think Fury will win the fight. But yeah, good for Francis Ngannou. It's going to be a big payday for him.
All right, so speaking of former UFC fighters, Donald Cerrone was at the Hall of Fame induction. He was supposed to give a speech. And before that, he was speaking to some reporters talking about how he had 48 total fights. And he was like, joking around, I could get to 50. Well, he ended up saying that we all know he's on TRT, but he said it pretty much outright. He's like, I'm on that not USADA approved shit, and I feel like I'm 21 again. He followed that up to say, less jokingly, that he's been wearing his wife out like he's 18 again. So props to Cerrone.
Yeah, all the props to Donald Cerrone.
Look, he's now acting. He's retired. He's in the Hall of Fame. If he's not in the Hall of Fame, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. It doesn't even matter.
He's probably making way more money now acting than he did in the UFC.
Yeah, they were talking about his wrestling camp that he does teaches wrestling to kids over the summer.
It's a pretty sweet compound.
They were asking if that sparked kind of that fire
Coaching
to fight
fire.
again. And he was like, no. He said he may end up doing the last two just to get to 50, but you don't know if that's joking. You don't know if it's serious. I'd be interested to see him fight, no matter how old he is. 75 in a boxing bout, I'd watch him fight. And finally, I'd like to ask you a couple who would win questions. You down for that?
Let's hear them.
All right. Number one, I think I'm getting a little bit more creative. I found some stuff on Reddit that helps out. This one I'm using. So number one, Mike Tyson with gorilla arms versus a gorilla with Mike Tyson arms. Who wins?
So does that transfer the arm strength to each other?
Yeah, you have Mike Tyson with arms of a gorilla and gorilla arm strength. And then you have a gorilla with Mike Tyson arms and Mike Tyson arm strength.
This is a tough one. I think I might have to go Mike Tyson because you have the human mind And if you have the arms with the strength of a gorilla, even though it's like jumping around you, if you get a hold of it with your arms, you're going to fuck that thing up. Because they fuck each other up.
Yeah, they do.
So I think I'm going to have to go Mike Tyson with the gorilla arms beats the gorilla with Mike Tyson arms. Strictly because of the arm strength of the gorilla. Can
Nice.
literally rip limbs off.
Okay, fair enough. Next. Who would win? A very large crab versus a very small elephant. Now, let's assume they're like equal sizes. You know, so if the crab's 6 foot, the elephant's 6 foot.
What if I made them both crab size?
Shrink them down? That's
No,
fine.
The crab the same size and the elephant small as the crab.
Yeah, as long as it's to scale, I think it's the same fight.
I'm going with the small elephant versus the regular sized crab. And that crab's fucking that elephant up. The only thing elephant has is its size.
Right, and once you shrink it down, I mean, if an elephant was my size, I'd
fucking
punch it
elephant up.
square in the head.
Yeah. You just stay out of the way of its, you just don't stand in front of it. You stand to the side of it and batter it from the outside.
Right. Bunch of leg kicks.
Yeah.
Okay. And lastly, Anakin, after Palpatine ordered Order 66, so this is when he was going to the Jedi Temple to take out the younglings.
So he's killing all the little kids from the movie?
Right. Revenge of the Sith. Versus Macaulay Culkin as Kevin McAllister as a Jedi youngling to set all his traps and such.
I mean, it's the same thing that happens to the kids. Anakin just murders them. What else is going to happen?
Well, maybe he sets a little trap and Anakin's like, oh.
Anakin will read his mind.
Well, he doesn't know what's happening.
It would be the same. You think Macaulay Culkin is better and smarter skilled than the kids that are Jedis?
I'm saying, what if he was a Jedi?
Yeah, it would be a worse Jedi than a normal Jedi if that kid was in there. Anakin mops the floor with any kid.
Okay, fair enough.
Thank you for listening to episode 4 of Split Decision. Check us out next week when we recap UFC Vegas 77 and preview UFC London Aspinall vs. Tibura.
Australia is wider than the moon. Like and subscribe to this episode of Split Decision, and check us out at splitdecision.blog, where you'll find our most recent posts, videos, and all the links to our socials.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of statistics, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat options are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million football fans who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.